Sarah's hands remained perfectly steady as she studied the impossible target through her scope. 4,000 meters across broken terrain, with swirling wind patterns that changed direction every few seconds. The mathematics of the shot were staggering. She would need to account for bullet drop, wind drift, temperature variations, and even the rotation of the Earth itself. No sniper in history had successfully engaged a target at such extreme range under combat conditions. Torres fed her constant updates on environmental conditions, his voice calm despite the desperate situation unfolding below them. The convoy had already taken 3 casualties, and ammunition was running low for their defensive perimeter. Sarah's team had eliminated 2 enemy shooters, but the remaining hostiles had adjusted their tactics and were using superior positioning to maintain their deadly fire. Through her scope, Sarah could see the enemy command position clearly now. 2 figures crouched behind a natural rock formation, one operating sophisticated communication equipment, while the other directed sniper fire through what appeared to be advanced targeting systems. These weren't insurgents with stolen weapons. They were professional operatives equipped with military-grade technology. The weight of command pressed down on Sarah as she made rapid calculations. Every second of delay meant more danger for the convoy personnel. But rushing the shot would almost certainly result in a miss at this extreme range. Her reputation for precision had been built through patience and careful preparation, qualities that seemed like luxuries in the current tactical situation. Her radio crackled with updates from the convoy commander. The mechanical failure that had stranded them was more serious than initially reported. The vehicle couldn't be repaired in the field, and the sensitive cargo couldn't be transferred to another platform without specialized handling equipment. They were truly trapped, dependent on Sarah's team to eliminate the enemy threat before their defensive ammunition was exhausted. Sarah made her 3rd critical command decision, ordering her remaining shooters to concentrate their fire on the closest enemy positions while she attempted the long-range shot. It was a calculated risk that would leave other enemy shooters temporarily unopposed, but success against the command element might cause the entire enemy force to withdraw or lose coordination. The scope reticle wavered slightly as thermal currents rose from the sun-heated rocks below. Sarah compensated for the mirage effect, a skill that had taken years to master and required an almost intuitive understanding of how heat distortion affected long-range optics. At 4,000 meters, even tiny errors in reading environmental conditions would cause a complete miss. She could feel sweat beading on her forehead despite the cooling system in her ghillie suit. The physical stress of maintaining perfect shooting position for hours was beginning to show, but Sarah forced herself to remain motionless. Her reputation and the lives of the convoy personnel depended on making this shot count, and she would get only one opportunity before the enemy realized they were under observation from her position. The enemy command team was partially concealed behind natural rock cover, presenting only a small portion of their bodies as potential targets. Sarah would need to place her bullet in a space roughly the size of a dinner plate to achieve an effective hit. At normal combat ranges, such precision would be challenging but achievable. At 4,000 meters, it bordered on impossible. Torres whispered wind readings and range confirmations, his professional expertise crucial for calculating the complex ballistics involved. The partnership between sniper and spotter was more important than ever, with Sarah depending on his observations to compensate for factors she couldn't directly observe through her rifle scope. Their working relationship had overcome initial skepticism about female leadership through demonstrated competence under pressure. Sarah's breathing slowed to the steady rhythm she had perfected through thousands of hours of training. Each exhale brought her closer to the natural pause between heartbeats where her body would be perfectly still. The shot had to be released at exactly the right moment, when every variable aligned for maximum accuracy. Through her scope, she watched the enemy commander raise what appeared to be a satellite phone, undoubtedly reporting the convoy's position and status to higher authority. The conversation suggested that reinforcements might be en route, which would make the convoy's situation even more desperate. Sarah realized she was looking at a narrow window of opportunity that might not come again. The mathematics were as perfect as they were ever going to be. Wind speed was momentarily steady, temperature conditions were optimal, and the target was presenting the largest possible silhouette. Sarah's finger found the trigger, applying the gradual pressure that would send her bullet on its incredible journey across the valley. What she didn't know was that the enemy commander was in direct communication with intelligence services from 3 different hostile nations, all coordinating their efforts to capture the nuclear detection technology. The conversation Torres had observed was actually a final confirmation that the convoy's cargo was authentic and worth the significant resources being committed to its capture. The satellite phone in the enemy commander's hand contained encryption, keys and communication protocols that linked directly to nuclear facilities in countries that had been evading international inspection requirements. Sarah's shot wouldn't just disrupt the immediate tactical situation. It would sever a crucial communication link in a broader international conspiracy to circumvent nuclear monitoring systems. As Sarah's finger completed its steady pressure on the trigger, she couldn't have imagined that her bullet would travel not just across the physical distance of the valley, but across the complex landscape of international nuclear politics, where the stakes involved the safety of millions of people around the world. The rifle's recoil was absorbed by Sarah's perfectly positioned body as the bullet began its incredible journey across the Afghan valley. For 3.2 seconds, the specially modified round traveled through changing air density, crosswinds, and thermal layers that could deflect it from its intended path. Sarah kept her scope trained on the target, watching for the impact that would determine whether her impossible shot had found its mark. The bullet struck with devastating precision, hitting the enemy commander center mass and sending him tumbling backward into the rocks. The satellite phone flew from his hands, its encrypted communication link severed at the crucial moment when hostile intelligence services were coordinating their next moves. Through her scope, Sarah could see the immediate confusion among the remaining enemy operatives as their command structure collapsed. Torres confirmed the hit with quiet professional satisfaction, but Sarah was already shifting her attention to the broader tactical situation. The enemy snipers had lost their coordination, but they remained dangerous and well-positioned. Her extreme-range shot had bought time for the convoy, but the fundamental problem of their exposed position remained unchanged. The psychological effect of her impossible shot rippled through both friendly and enemy forces. The convoy personnel found new hope in their desperate situation, while the remaining enemy operatives began to question whether they were facing ordinary special operations troops or something far more capable. Several hostile positions went silent, their occupants apparently reconsidering the wisdom of remaining exposed to such devastating accurate fire. Sarah's radio filled with urgent traffic as intelligence analysts tried to understand what they were dealing with in the valley. The sophisticated enemy equipment and coordinated tactics suggested state-sponsored operatives rather than local insurgents. More troubling was the apparent intelligence leak that had allowed the enemy to position their forces with such precise timing and positioning. The convoy commander provided additional details that painted an even more serious picture. The nuclear detection equipment they carried represented years of international cooperation and technological development. Its capture would allow hostile nations to develop countermeasures against the monitoring systems that helped prevent nuclear weapons proliferation around the globe. Sarah realized she was no longer fighting a tactical engagement, but participating in a strategic battle for global nuclear security. The enemy operatives were willing to accept significant casualties to obtain their objective, suggesting that the stakes extended far beyond the immediate tactical situation. Her exceptional marksmanship had disrupted their plan, but more enemy forces were likely en route to complete the mission. Her fourth critical command decision involved repositioning her entire team to better defend against expected reinforcements. The enemy would undoubtedly adapt their tactics after losing their command element, possibly attempting to flank the convoy from unexpected directions. Sarah ordered her shooters to establish overlapping fields of fire that could cover multiple approach routes. The enemy response came faster than expected. Within 30 minutes of her incredible shot, new hostile forces began appearing on ridgelines that her team hadn't been watching. These operatives moved with even greater skill and coordination, suggesting that the most dangerous phase of the engagement was just beginning. Sarah counted at least 12 new enemy positions equipped with advanced optics and weapon systems. The tactical mathematics had shifted dramatically in the enemy's favor. Sarah's team of 4 couldn't effectively cover all the potential firing positions now occupied by hostile forces. The convoy remained trapped with limited ammunition and no possibility of mechanical repair in their exposed position. Even her exceptional marksmanship couldn't overcome such overwhelming numerical disadvantage. Her radio crackled with an unexpected transmission from higher command. Intelligence services had been monitoring enemy communications and discovered that the attack was part of a broader international operation. Multiple hostile intelligence services were coordinating their efforts, with backup teams already moving toward the valley. The convoy's cargo had become the focus of what amounted to an undeclared international incident. Sarah learned that her incredible shot had done more than eliminate an enemy commander. It had severed communication links between hostile intelligence services at a crucial moment in their operation. The encrypted satellite phone she had destroyed contained coordination protocols that couldn't be quickly replaced, buying valuable time for international diplomatic efforts to address the crisis. The broader picture began to clarify as she received additional intelligence updates. 3 different nations with questionable nuclear programs had been working together to capture the detection equipment, planning to reverse engineer its capabilities and develop countermeasures. Sarah's marksmanship had disrupted a conspiracy that threatened the entire international nuclear monitoring system. But the enemy hadn't given up. New intelligence reports suggested that a much larger force was approaching the valley, equipped with heavy weapons and armored vehicles. The sophisticated operatives Sarah had been fighting were just the advance team for what amounted to a military operation disguised as insurgent activity. The convoy commander reported that his defensive ammunition would be exhausted within the hour. Sarah's team couldn't possibly hold off a large-scale assault, regardless of their exceptional shooting skills. The situation required immediate extraction or reinforcement, but both options presented enormous logistical challenges given their remote location and the strength of enemy forces. Sarah faced the most difficult decision of her military career. She could order her team to attempt extraction, potentially sacrificing the convoy and its crucial cargo to save her people. Alternatively, she could commit to defending the convoy until reinforcements arrived, knowing that such help might come too late to prevent a catastrophic outcome. The weight of international nuclear security rested on her shoulders as she studied the valley through her scope. Her impossible shot had prevented immediate disaster, but the broader crisis was far from resolved. The next few hours would determine whether her exceptional marksmanship had bought enough time for diplomatic solutions to prevent the nuclear detection technology from falling into hostile hands. The first sign of trouble came through Sarah's radio at 11:47 hours. The convoy had stopped unexpectedly in the middle of the valley, and thermal imaging was picking up multiple heat signatures moving through the rocks on the opposite ridge. Sarah's trained eye immediately identified the tactical problem. If hostile forces had positioned themselves on the high ground across from her team, the convoy would be caught in a devastating crossfire. Through her scope, Sarah could see the convoy, personnel scrambling to establish a defensive perimeter around their vehicles. Something had clearly gone wrong with their mission timeline, but the radio chatter remained frustratingly vague. What she didn't know was that the convoy's lead vehicle had suffered a critical mechanical failure, stranding them in the worst possible location. The cargo they carried, advanced nuclear detection equipment bound for a joint international inspection team, made retreat impossible. Sergeant Mike Torres, her spotter and one of her most vocal critics, crawled up beside her position. His previous complaints about female leadership seemed forgotten as he studied the tactical situation through his own optics. The enemy forces were moving with precision and coordination that suggested advanced training, possibly special forces from a hostile nation rather than local insurgents. Sarah made her first critical command decision of the day, ordering her team to split their overwatch coverage. 2 shooters would focus on the immediate threats to the convoy, while she maintained watch on the larger tactical picture. Her years of experience told her this ambush was too sophisticated to be a random attack. Someone had known exactly when and where to position their forces for maximum effect. The enemy revealed themselves at noon when the first sniper shot rang across the valley. The bullet struck dangerously close to the convoy commander, confirming Sarah's worst fears about the tactical situation. Her radio immediately filled with urgent requests for suppressive fire. but the distances involved made accurate shooting extremely challenging. The enemy positions were over 3,000 meters away, at the very edge of effective range for her weapon system. Sarah's reputation as an exceptional marksman was about to be put to its ultimate test. She had made successful shots at extreme distances before, but never under these conditions and never with so many lives hanging in the balance. The convoy personnel were trapped in the open with minimal cover, depending entirely on her team's ability to neutralize the enemy shooters before they could complete their deadly work. Her first shot was perfect, dropping an enemy sniper who had been lining up on the convoy commander. The satisfaction of the hit was immediately replaced by concern, as she identified two more hostile positions firing at the trapped vehicles. Torres was feeding her wind speed and direction data, his professional expertise overriding any personal reservations about her leadership. In moments like these, competence mattered more than gender. The radio traffic revealed the true scope of the crisis developing in the valley below. The convoy commander reported that they were carrying sensitive detection equipment that absolutely could not fall into enemy hands. If captured, the technology could be reverse-engineered to help hostile nations avoid nuclear inspection protocols, potentially destabilizing the entire international monitoring system that kept the world's nuclear powers in check. Sarah realized she was no longer just providing overwatch for a routine convoy. She was protecting technology that helped prevent nuclear proliferation around the globe. The enemy forces weren't random insurgents looking for weapons or supplies. They were sophisticated operatives sent specifically to capture this equipment, and they were willing to kill everyone in the convoy to obtain it. The tactical situation deteriorated rapidly as more enemy positions revealed themselves. Sarah counted at least 6 hostile shooters spread across the opposite ridge, each one positioned to cover different escape routes from the valley floor. The convoy was effectively pinned down, unable to move forward or retreat without exposing themselves to deadly accurate fire from multiple angles. Her second command decision was even more critical than the first. Sarah ordered her team to shift positions, moving to new firing points that would give them better angles on the enemy positions. The movement was dangerous, potentially exposing her people to counter-sniper fire, but staying in their original positions would allow the enemy to systematically eliminate the convoy personnel. As her team repositioned, Sarah maintained continuous fire on the most dangerous enemy shooters. Her accuracy at extreme range was keeping the convoy alive, but she knew their situation remained desperate. The enemy had chosen their positions well, using natural cover that made them extremely difficult to eliminate even with precision shooting. Breakthrough came when Torres spotted movement in a hidden position nearly 4,000 meters away. Through his spotting scope, he could see what appeared to be a command element coordinating the enemy attack. Sarah studied the target through her own optics, calculating the impossible shot that might break up the enemy coordination and give the convoy a chance to escape. The distance was at the absolute limit of her weapon system's capability. Wind conditions were challenging, with gusts and thermal currents created by the rocky terrain making accurate calculation nearly impossible. Even her exceptional marksmanship skills would be pushed to their absolute limit by such an attempt. But as she watched the convoy personnel fighting for their lives in the valley below, Sarah knew she had to try. What neither Sarah nor her team realized was that the enemy command position contained more than just tactical coordinators. Hidden among the rocks was a forward observer with direct communication links to hostile intelligence services in multiple countries. The technology in that convoy represented a significant threat to several nations' nuclear programs, and they were prepared to go to extraordinary lengths to prevent it from reaching its intended destination. The shot Sarah was contemplating would do more than just disrupt the immediate tactical situation. Success would prevent classified nuclear detection technology from falling into hostile hands, maintaining the delicate balance of international nuclear monitoring that helped keep the peace between global superpowers. Captain Sarah Martinez adjusted her scope for the third time that morning, watching the dust settle across the Afghan valley below. The sun burned mercilessly overhead as she lay perfectly still on the rocky outcrop, her rifle steady despite the sweat beading on her forehead. Behind her, she could hear the muffled voices of her male colleagues discussing the morning briefing, their conversation peppered with doubt about their new team leader. 3 months had passed since Sarah became the first female commander of SEAL Team 7, and the whispers hadn't stopped. At 32, she had more confirmed kills than most snipers twice her age, but her gender seemed to overshadow every achievement. The men respected her shooting skills. They had no choice after witnessing her precision during training exercises. But leadership was different. Command required something beyond marksmanship, they believed, something they weren't sure a woman could possess. Sarah's journey to this position had been anything but ordinary. Growing up in rural Montana, she learned to shoot before she could properly ride a bicycle. Her father, a former Marine, taught her that accuracy wasn't just about steady hands and good eyes. It was about patience, discipline, and the ability to make impossible decisions under pressure. These lessons served her well when she enlisted, at 18, determined to prove that women could excel in combat roles that had been closed to them for decades. The path through Bud's training had been brutal. She was one of only 3 women in her class, and the only one to complete the grueling 6-month program. The instructors pushed her harder than the men, expecting her to fail at every turn. Instead, she excelled, particularly in long-range marksmanship, where her natural talent and relentless practice set her apart. By graduation, even her harshest critics had to acknowledge her exceptional abilities. Her first deployment changed everything. During a rescue mission in Iraq, Sarah's precision shooting had saved an entire convoy from an ambush. Her ability to pick off enemy fighters at distances that seemed impossible had earned her the nickname Ghost among her teammates. But success in the field didn't automatically translate to acceptance in the barracks. The Brotherhood of Special Operations remained skeptical of women in leadership roles, regardless of their combat record. The promotion to team commander came after her previous leader was injured in an IED explosion. Sarah had been his second in command for 2 years, and her tactical knowledge was unquestionable. Still, several team members had privately requested transfers, uncomfortable with taking orders from a woman. The Navy brass stood firm, recognizing that Sarah's combination of combat experience and strategic thinking made her the obvious choice for leadership. Now, lying on this Afghan mountainside, Sarah could feel the weight of their skepticism. Every decision she made was scrutinized more closely than her male predecessors. Every mission had to be flawless. Every call had to be perfect. The margin for error that her male colleagues enjoyed simply didn't exist for her. One mistake, one bad judgment call, and her career would be over, along with opportunities for other women who might follow in her footsteps. The radio crackled softly in her ear, bringing her back to the present moment. Intelligence reports suggested enemy movement in the valley below, and her team was positioned to provide overwatch for a convoy passing through the area. It was supposed to be a routine mission, the kind they had completed dozens of times before. Sarah adjusted her position slightly, scanning the terrain through her scope for any signs of hostile activity. What she didn't know was that this seemingly ordinary morning would set in motion a chain of events that would test every skill she had developed over her career. The convoy below carried more than standard supplies and personnel. Hidden among the regular cargo was a piece of technology that several international players were desperate to obtain. The intelligence briefing had been deliberately incomplete, leaving Sarah and her team unaware of the true stakes involved in their mission. As the sun climbed higher and the temperature soared past 100 degrees, Sarah maintained her vigilant watch. Her teammates might question her leadership abilities, but they couldn't argue with her dedication. She had been in position since before dawn, and she would remain there until every member of the convoy was safely through the valley. This was what leadership meant to her, being the first to arrive, the last to leave, and carrying the full weight of responsibility for every person under her command. The morning passed quietly, almost too quietly for Sarah's liking. Her experience had taught her to be suspicious of peaceful moments in combat zones. The enemy rarely attacked when expected, preferring to strike when soldiers let their guard down. She kept her rifle trained on potential sniper positions across the valley, knowing that somewhere out there, hostile forces might be preparing their own ambush. Little did she know that her vigilance that morning was about to be tested in ways she could never have imagined. The convoy approaching her position carried secrets that would soon thrust her into the center of an international crisis. The shot she would be called upon to make would be unlike any in her career, not just for its incredible distance but for the global consequences that would hang in the balance. The sound of incoming aircraft reached Sarah's ears at exactly 16:47 hours, just as her team's ammunition reached critically low levels. Two Apache attack helicopters appeared over the eastern ridge, their arrival changing the tactical situation, dramatically in favor of the convoy and Sarah's defending team. The enemy forces, who had been preparing their final assault, suddenly found themselves exposed to devastating air support. Sarah coordinated the helicopter strikes with the same precision she applied to her own marksmanship, directing the pilots to the most dangerous enemy positions while ensuring that her own team remained clear of the engagement zones. Her exceptional tactical awareness allowed the air support to eliminate multiple enemy positions within minutes, breaking the coordinated assault that had threatened to overwhelm the convoy. The psychological impact of the helicopter arrival rippled through the remaining enemy forces. Many hostile operatives began withdrawing from their positions, realizing that their carefully planned operation had failed completely. The few who remained were quickly eliminated by the combination of air support and Sarah's continued precision shooting from her overwatch position. Within 30 minutes of the helicopter's arrival, the valley was secure, and the convoy was able to begin movement toward their intended destination. Sarah's team had successfully defended the nuclear detection equipment against overwhelming odds, preventing a catastrophic breach of international nuclear security. Her impossible 7,000-meter shot had been the crucial turning point that disrupted enemy coordination and bought time for reinforcements to arrive. The aftermath of the engagement revealed the full scope of what Sarah's marksmanship had prevented. Intelligence analysis of captured enemy equipment and communications confirmed that 3 hostile nations had been coordinating their efforts to obtain the nuclear detection technology. The operation represented one of the most serious threats to international nuclear security in decades. Sarah's bullet had traveled not just across the physical distance of the Afghan valley, but across the complex landscape of international nuclear politics. Her incredible shot had severed communication links at the exact moment when hostile intelligence services were coordinating their final moves, creating confusion that proved impossible to overcome within their operational time frame. The diplomatic consequences of the failed operation extended far beyond the immediate tactical situation. Several nations found themselves exposed as participants in nuclear proliferation activities, facing international sanctions and diplomatic isolation. The evidence gathered during the engagement provided crucial intelligence for nuclear monitoring agencies worldwide. Sarah's exceptional leadership during the crisis finally silenced the skeptics who had questioned her appointment as team commander. Her male colleagues, who had witnessed her tactical decision-making and marksmanship under the most extreme circumstances, now understood that competence and courage weren't determined by gender. Torres, her former critic, became one of her strongest supporters within the special operations community. The recognition for Sarah's achievement came slowly through official channels, as much of the operation remained classified due to its international implications. But within the special operations community, her 7,000-meter shot became legendary, representing the longest confirmed combat kill in military history and the tactical decision that prevented nuclear technology from falling into hostile hands. The convoy finally reached its destination 3 days later, delivering the nuclear detection equipment to the international monitoring team that would use it to strengthen global non-proliferation efforts. The technology that Sarah had protected would help identify nuclear activities around the world, potentially preventing nuclear weapons development by hostile nations for decades to come. Sarah's military career continued with additional commands and increasing responsibility, but she never forgot the moment when her marksmanship skills intersected with international nuclear security. The shot that traveled 7,000 meters across an Afghan valley had prevented consequences that could have affected millions of people around the globe. The broader impact of her incredible marksmanship extended beyond military circles to influence international nuclear policy and monitoring systems. The intelligence gathered during the engagement helped strengthen nuclear inspection protocols, and improve coordination between international monitoring agencies and military forces. Years later, Sarah would reflect on how a single bullet had changed not just her career but the trajectory of international nuclear security. Her exceptional shooting skills, combined with tactical leadership under impossible circumstances, had demonstrated that individual competence and courage could influence global events in ways that few people ever experience. The female sniper, commander who had been ignored and doubted by her colleagues, had ultimately prevented nuclear war through her exceptional marksmanship and tactical decision-making. Her 7,000-meter shot remained a classified military achievement, but its consequences rippled through international nuclear politics for generations, helping to maintain the delicate balance of power that kept the world's nuclear weapons under control. Sarah Martinez had proven that in the critical moments when history hangs in the balance, individual excellence and courage matter more than prejudice or skepticism. Her impossible shot had not only saved lives in an Afghan valley but had helped preserve the international systems that prevent nuclear conflict around the world. Sarah's decision came with crystal clarity as she watched enemy reinforcements moving into position across multiple ridge lines. She would hold the position and defend the convoy, regardless of the overwhelming odds her team faced. The nuclear detection technology in those vehicles represented too important a strategic asset to abandon, and her oath as a military officer demanded that she protect it at all costs. Her fifth command decision was perhaps the most audacious of her career. Instead of waiting for the enemy to coordinate their overwhelming assault, Sarah ordered her team to begin engaging targets at maximum range, using their superior marksmanship to disrupt enemy positioning before they could establish effective firing positions. It was an aggressive strategy that would reveal her team's locations, but might prevent the enemy from achieving tactical coordination. The battle that followed showcased Sarah's exceptional leadership under impossible circumstances. She coordinated her 3 remaining shooters with precision timing, ensuring that each enemy position faced accurate fire before they could effectively engage the convoy. Her own shooting remained devastatingly accurate, even as return fire began to bracket her position with increasing precision. Torres continued providing crucial spotting support, his professional respect for Sarah's tactical skills completely overriding any previous reservations about female command authority. Under her direction, the small team achieved a rate of successful enemy engagement that far exceeded normal expectations for such overwhelming numerical disadvantage. The enemy forces adapted quickly to her aggressive tactics, beginning to coordinate their movements and concentrate fire on her team's positions. Sarah realized that her shooters would soon be forced to abandon their carefully chosen firing points, reducing their effectiveness significantly. The tactical clock was running against them, with enemy reinforcements continuing to arrive throughout the afternoon. Her radio brought updates from intelligence services that painted an increasingly complex picture of the international crisis. The hostile intelligence services had been monitoring nuclear inspection schedules for months, identifying the convoy's cargo and timing their operation to coincide with a period when international attention was focused elsewhere. Sarah's disruption of their carefully planned operation had created diplomatic opportunities that hadn't existed before. The encrypted communications her incredible shot had severed contained more than just tactical coordination protocols. Intelligence analysts discovered evidence of broader nuclear proliferation networks, with the captured detection equipment intended to help multiple hostile nations avoid international monitoring requirements. Her marksmanship had provided crucial intelligence about threats to global nuclear security. But the immediate tactical situation remained desperate. Enemy forces had established positions that would allow them to assault the convoy from multiple directions simultaneously, overwhelming the defensive capabilities of both her team and the convoy personnel. Sarah counted over 20 hostile shooters now in position, supported by crew-served weapons that could devastate the exposed vehicles below. Her radio crackled with an unexpected development. Friendly aircraft were en route to provide support, but their estimated arrival time was still 40 minutes away. Sarah's team would need to maintain their defensive efforts for nearly an hour against overwhelming odds, protecting not just the convoy personnel, but the strategic technology that had become the focus of international attention. The enemy commander, replacement, had learned from his predecessor's fate, carefully concealing himself while coordinating the final assault on the convoy. Sarah studied the potential positions through her scope, looking for any opportunity to repeat her incredible long-range engagement. The enemy had adapted their tactics specifically to avoid exposing command personnel to her devastating accuracy. The assault began at 16:30 hours with concentrated fire from multiple directions simultaneously. Sarah's team responded with precisely aimed shots that eliminated several enemy positions, but the sheer volume of incoming fire forced them to constantly shift positions to avoid being overwhelmed. The convoy's defensive perimeter began taking casualties as enemy fire found gaps in their hastily constructed cover. Sarah made her most difficult shot of the engagement, eliminating an enemy machine gun position at nearly 5,000 meters while under direct fire from multiple directions. The bullet found its mark despite the extreme range and challenging conditions, silencing a weapon system that had been devastating the convoy's defensive positions. Her exceptional marksmanship was keeping the convoy alive, but ammunition supplies, for both her team and the defensive perimeter, were running critically low. Sarah realized that even her incredible shooting skills couldn't overcome the basic mathematics of ammunition consumption versus enemy numbers. They were fighting a losing battle against time and logistics. The radio brought intelligence updates that revealed the true scope of what her team was defending against. The nuclear detection equipment in the convoy represented the most advanced monitoring technology ever developed, capable of detecting nuclear materials and activities that previous systems couldn't identify. Its capture would create a massive intelligence advantage for hostile nations seeking to hide their nuclear programs. Sarah's impossible 7,000-meter shot had prevented more than just the immediate capture of strategic technology. Her bullet had severed communication links in a broader international conspiracy that threatened the entire framework of nuclear non-proliferation treaties and monitoring systems that helped maintain global peace. As enemy fire intensified around her position, Sarah prepared for what might be her final engagement. The aircraft support was still 20 minutes away, and her team's ammunition wouldn't last much longer against such overwhelming enemy numbers. But she had already achieved something unprecedented in military history. Her marksmanship had prevented a nuclear crisis that could have destabilized international security for generations to come.